Ajax once defined European football, 3 straight European Cups, icons like Cruyff and Van Basten, and an academy renowned worldwide. Its legacy in ruins, millions squandered on failed transfers and supporters in open revolt. How did the team that created total football become Europe's cautionary tale? To understand the scale of this collapse, you have to start at Ajax's peak, when they shaped the very game itself. In the early 1970s, Ajax stood at the summit of world football. The club's style was unmistakable, fluid, attacking, and relentlessly innovative. Under Rinus Michels and with Johan Cruyff as the heartbeat, Ajax swept to 3 consecutive European Cups, 1971, 1972, and 1973. No Dutch club had ever dominated the continent like this. Their approach, later known as total football, demanded that every player be comfortable everywhere on the pitch. Defenders surged forward, attackers tracked back, and the ball seemed to move with a mind of its own. The 1971 final in London saw Ajax defeat Panathinaikos. A year later, they overcame Inter Milan in Rotterdam, with Cruyff scoring twice. By 1973, after beating Juventus in Belgrade, Ajax had secured their 3rd straight European crown, a feat matched only by the likes of Real Madrid. That same summer, they were crowned world champions after winning the Intercontinental Cup. The team's identity was clear, fearless, technical, and always on the front foot. Ajax's influence stretched beyond trophies. Their philosophy shaped the very language of football. Clubs across Europe tried to imitate the positional rotation and pressing that Ajax made famous. The club's DNA, built on homegrown talent and a commitment to attacking football, became a model for others. Cruyff, the symbol of this era, embodied the Ajax spirit, vision, courage, and a refusal to compromise on style. As the years passed, Ajax's academy became a production line for future stars. The club's principles, possession, movement, and technical skill were passed down to each new generation. In the mid-1990s, a new wave of talent brought Ajax back to the top. Under Louis van Gaal, the 1995 team conquered Europe again, defeating AC Milan 1-0 in Vienna. The winning goal, scored by 18-year-old Patrick Kluivert, was the culmination of a season where Ajax went unbeaten in the Eredivisie. That squad, featuring Clarence Seedorf, Edgar Davids, Mark Overmars and Edwin van der Sar, all products of the Ajax system, reminded the world that the club's golden blueprint still worked. Ajax's legacy is measured not just in silverware, but in the way they changed the game. Their 3 in a row in the early 70s, the 1995 Champions League triumph, and their relentless commitment to style set standards that few could match. For decades, Ajax was more than a club. They were the reference point for how football could and should be played. Every later disappointment, every modern crisis would be judged against this era of beauty and dominance. Ajax's rise is powered by more than tradition or talent. At De Toekomst, the club's academy, a clear philosophy shapes every player. The foundation is the TIPS model: technique, intelligence, personality, and speed. These are not slogans, they are the daily standard. Technique is non-negotiable. From the earliest sessions, coaches demand a perfect first touch, sharp passing, and comfort in tight spaces. Small-sided games fill the schedule, pushing players to experiment, fail, and try again, always with the ball at their feet. Intelligence is cultivated through movement and positional play. Players learn to read the field, anticipate runs, and understand the flow of the game. The goal is not just to react, but to see the play before it happens. Personality is measured in courage. Coaches value those who take risks, ask for the ball under pressure, and lead by example. Resilience is essential. Mistakes are part of the process, but so is bouncing back. Speed, both in body and mind, is woven into every drill. How quickly a player can decide and act under pressure often separates the promising from the exceptional. Progression is mapped with intent. The pathway runs from U18s to Jong Ajax in the Eerste Divisie, then to the first team. This ladder is real. A standout U18 can find himself training with Jong Ajax, facing seasoned professionals while still a teenager. The curriculum is unified. Every age group plays the 4-3-3 formation, learns the same pressing triggers, and builds from the back. When a player moves up, the system stays the same, only the tempo and demands increase. Training mirrors the professional world. U17s and U18s train 4 or 5 times a week, blending technical drills, tactical games, gym sessions, and video analysis. Each match week follows a microcycle, technical focus early, tactical work midweek, then speed and sharpness as game day nears. Video sessions dissect team patterns and individual choices, reinforcing lessons. At Jong Ajax, the routine is nearly identical to the first team: morning meetings, pitch work, gym and recovery, all overseen by coaches steeped in Ajax's methods. Promotion is earned. Coaches look beyond goals and assists, judging whether a player dominates his level, understands the model, and shows resilience for the next step. Since the academy's professionalization, over 50 graduates have debuted for the first team, with homegrown players often accounting for a third or more of all minutes played. Transfer income from academy products reaches into the hundreds of millions, proof of the system's strength. De Toekomst's influence stretches across Europe. The KNVB and coaching institutes cite Ajax as a model for aligning club philosophy with academy curriculum. The pathway is clear, structured, and fiercely competitive. This engine gives Ajax an edge money cannot buy, a steady flow of players fluent in the club's style, ready to step up when called. Madrid in February. Ajax walked into the Santiago Bernabeu as underdogs, trailing Real Madrid after the first leg. On paper, the tie looked settled. But that night, Ajax played with a fearlessness that stunned Europe. Dusan Tadic orchestrated the attack, weaving through defenders and setting up goals for Hakim Ziyech and David Neres. When Tadic curled in the third, Madrid's fans fell silent. The fourth goal, a thundering strike from Lasashona, sealed a 4-1 win and sent the holders crashing out. It was the kind of performance that revived memories of Ajax's greatest nights: bold, technical, and unapologetically attacking. The next challenge came in Turin. Juventus, led by Cristiano Ronaldo, stood between Ajax and the Champions League semi-finals. After going behind, Ajax did not shrink. They pressed high, attacked in waves, and played with the same confidence that had dismantled Madrid. Donny van de Beek equalised before half-time. In the second half, 19-year-old Matthijs de Ligt soared above the Juventus defence to head home. The winner. Ajax advanced 3-2 on aggregate, knocking out another European giant. Every match in that run felt electric. Erik ten Hag's team combined academy youth with smart signings. Frenkie de Jong dictated play from deep, always looking to break lines. De Ligt anchored the defence, calm beyond his years. Mazraoui and Tagliafico pushed forward from fullback, turning defence into attack. Tadic, Ziyech and Neres formed a fluid front three, constantly swapping positions and pulling defenders out of shape. The team pressed with intensity, hunted the ball in packs, and moved it quickly once they won it back. Their football was adventurous but also disciplined, shaped by hours of tactical preparation. The semi-final against Tottenham Hotspur brought drama of its own. Ajax won the first leg in London, with Donny van de Beek scoring early. In Amsterdam, they raced to a 2-goal lead by half-time, De Ligt and Ziyech on the scoresheet. For a moment, it looked like another fairy tale was unfolding, but in the dying seconds, Lucas Moura completed his hat-trick for Spurs, ending Ajax's dream with the last kick of the game. Heartbreak, but also pride. The world had watched as Ajax, built on youth and belief, outplayed Europe's richest clubs. That spring, Ajax's style captured the imagination of fans everywhere. They played without fear, with a commitment to attack that honoured the club's traditions. Their run to the semi-finals did not come from results alone. It came from the way they played, the joy they brought, and the sense that anything was possible. For a new generation, Ajax became the team to watch, the team to emulate. The football world took notice, but as the celebrations faded, the challenges of holding this team together would soon become impossible to ignore. On April the 21st, 2022, Manchester United announced Erik ten Hag as their new manager. Ajax confirmed his departure for the end of the season. Ten Hag's final home match brought a 36th Dutch League title to Amsterdam. But beneath the celebrations, the club faced a problem it had not seen in years: the loss of a coach who had become the axis of its sporting structure. Ten Hag's time at Ajax was more than a run of trophies. He had built a system where every department, recruitment, academy and tactics worked in sync. The boardroom often deferred to his vision, and the technical staff from the first team down to Jong Ajax operated under his methods. His partnership with Director of Football Mark Overmars was the backbone of the club's modern success. Together, they created a model that blended homegrown talent with shrewd signings, and the results spoke for themselves. 3 league titles in 4 seasons, a Champions League semi-final, and a team that played with conviction and clarity. As Ten Hag prepared for England, he pressed Ajax's leadership for guarantees. He wanted a clear sporting structure that could outlast any one coach, a robust data department, a long-term plan for recruitment, and a seamless connection between the academy and the first team. He argued for more professional support staff, including analysts, medical experts, and performance coaches. Some of these requests were approved, but others stalled in meetings or were trimmed to save costs. Internal politics and financial caution crept in, and the board underestimated just how much depended on the synergy between Ten Hag and Overmars. With Overmars gone after his abrupt resignation in February, Ten Hag's exit left Edwin van der Sar as the last remaining pillar of the leadership team that had steered Ajax's revival. The club faced a choice: continue the model that had brought recent glory or find a new direction. The decision came quickly. Alfred Schreuder, Ten Hag's former assistant and most recently at Club Brugge, was promoted to head coach. The logic was continuity, but Schreuder lacked the authority and presence of his predecessor. He inherited a squad about to be reshaped by major transfers and uncertainty in the boardroom. For the first time in a decade, Ajax entered a summer without a proven sporting director or a coach with deep roots in the club's culture. The vacuum was not just about who sat on the bench or negotiated transfers, it was about the loss of a system that had held Ajax together. The cracks were no longer theoretical. They were about to become visible on the pitch and in the results. On February the 6th, 2022, Ajax released a statement that sent shockwaves through Dutch football. Mark Overmars, the club's director of football since 2012, resigned with immediate effect. The reason was a series of inappropriate messages sent to female colleagues uncovered by an internal investigation. The club's supervisory board described his behaviour as unacceptable and said it created an unsafe working environment. For a decade, Overmars had been the architect of Ajax's modern transfer strategy. He identified undervalued talent, negotiated sales at the peak of the market, and balanced sporting ambition with financial discipline. His fingerprints were on every major move, from signing Hakim Ziyech and Lisandro Martinez to bringing Dusan Tadic and Sebastian Haller to Amsterdam. Inside the club, the news landed hard. Overmars was more than an executive. He was a linchpin, the bridge between the boardroom and the pitch. Coaches, scouts, and analysts relied on his vision and authority to push deals through, set priorities, and resolve disputes. The timing of his exit could not have been worse. Just months before the crucial summer transfer window, Ajax lost the person who had steered every negotiation for a decade. There was no clear successor and no ready-made plan. Some board members argued for a transition period, hoping to retain his expertise in the background. Others insisted on a clean break, citing the seriousness of the complaints and the need to restore trust inside the club. The vacuum was immediate. With Overmars gone, Edwin van der Sar, the chief executive officer, was forced to take on sporting duties he had never handled alone. Scouting meetings became more uncertain, and decisions that once took days now dragged on for weeks. Agents and rival clubs sensed hesitation. Internally, staff described a sense of paralysis. No one wanted to make the wrong call without the director's approval. The club's transfer machine, once the envy of Europe, lost its architect overnight. As the summer approached, Ajax faced a new reality. The structure that had powered their rise was suddenly missing its central piece, and the consequences would soon spill onto the field. The boardroom at Ajax, once a symbol of clarity and purpose, quickly became a source of confusion. In the weeks after Mark Overmars' resignation, the supervisory board moved slowly and offered little public direction. No immediate replacement for the director of football was named. Instead, duties were split on a temporary basis between Edwin van der Sar and a committee of technical staff, but without the authority or vision Overmars brought. Official statements spoke of a search for stability, but inside the club, decision-making stalled. Scouting meetings stretched on without resolution. Agents used to swift negotiations began to complain about delays and mixed messages. Rival clubs sensed the hesitation and moved in on targets Ajax had been tracking for months. The supervisory board, tasked with oversight and strategy, hesitated to take decisive action. Some members pushed for an interim sporting director to bridge the gap, while others argued for a full reset and a more thorough search. Meetings dragged on, the summer transfer window approached with no clear plan, and the technical staff found themselves second-guessing every move. Recruitment, once Ajax's strongest department, became a patchwork of opinions and half-measures. Decisions that once took a week now stretched into the off-season. As the weeks passed, the absence of a leader at the top of football operations created a vacuum. Every department, from scouting to analytics, waited for new instructions that never arrived. Meanwhile, the supervisory board's public communications offered little substance. Fans and shareholders grew restless, questioning the lack of urgency and transparency. The club's identity, built on clear roles and strong leadership, faded into a fog of indecision. Inside the walls of De Toekomst and the R&A, staff described a climate of uncertainty. Without a director of football, there was no one to set priorities, resolve disagreements, or push through deals. The summer would bring a flurry of signings, but the groundwork was already shaky. The hesitation at the top set Ajax on a path where short-term fixes replaced long-term vision, and the cracks in governance began to widen. Sven Mislintat arrived in Amsterdam with a reputation for bold moves and a data-driven approach. Ajax handed him the largest transfer budget in the club's history, roughly 110 million euros committed to new signings for the 2022 to 2023 rebuild. It was a staggering figure for Dutch football, outstripping anything the club had ever spent before. The logic was simple. After selling stars like Anthony and Lisandro Martinez for record fees, Ajax could afford to reinvest. But the strategy abandoned the careful, targeted recruitment that had defined the club's best years. 12 new players joined the squad in a single window, each carrying a hefty price tag or complex contract. Steven Bergwijn's transfer from Tottenham shattered the Dutch record at just over 31 million euros. Calvin Bassey arrived from Rangers for about 23 million euros, expected to anchor the defence. Brian Brobby returned from Leipzig for a fee close to 17 million euros, despite having left as an academy graduate only a year before. Ajax paid 8-figure sums for Owen Wijndal and invested another 5 million euros in Francisco Conceição, a winger from Porto, but with a buyback clause that gave Porto the upper hand if he blossomed. The spending spree was relentless, but the squad's identity grew less distinct with each deal. Instead of reinforcing the Ajax blueprint, the club assembled a patchwork of profiles, many with little connection to the club's style or tactical needs. The volume of arrivals overwhelmed the dressing room and left little room for academy talent to break through. For a club that once prided itself on precision and patience in the market, the 110 million euro outlay was a gamble that would haunt every department, from the pitch to the boardroom. Steven Bergwijn arrived in Amsterdam with the weight of a record fee on his shoulders. Ajax paid 31.25 million euros to bring him back from Tottenham, making him the most expensive signing in Dutch football history. The expectation was clear. Bergwijn would replace the output of departed stars and inject pace, goals and leadership into the attack. But on the pitch, he struggled to find his rhythm. His pressing intensity never matched the demands of Ajax's system, and his end product faded in crucial matches. For a club that was once built around technical fit, Bergwijn's high-profile return became a symbol of paying for reputation over tactical need. Calvin Bassey's signing was just as bold. Ajax spent 23 million euros to secure the defender from Rangers, banking on his physicality and promise after a strong Europa League campaign. but the transition was rocky. Bassi found himself exposed in Ajax's high defensive line, often caught out of position or hurried into mistakes under pressure. His passing range and composure, essential for building from the back, fell short of the club's standards. Within a year, Bassi was sold to Fulham. His spell in Amsterdam remembered more for misfit than impact. Francisco Conceição was signed for €5 million from Porto and was billed as a future star. Yet his minutes were limited, and the buyback clause in his contract allowed Porto to re-sign him at a fixed price. Ajax invested in potential but surrendered control over any upside. Conceição's brief stay offered little on the field and left Ajax with no lasting return. Each of these deals reflected a pattern: high fees, tactical mismatches, and contracts that favoured the selling clubs. The result was a squad heavy on cost but light on cohesion, drifting further from the principles that once defined Ajax football. Expenses kept climbing even as results on the pitch faltered. The wage bill swelled to record levels, with new signings demanding salaries well above the club's historical limits. Each transfer brought not just a hefty fee, but years of guaranteed payments, locked in by contracts that were hard to move on. Amortization, the spreading of transfer costs across contract lengths, spiked. Every season, millions more were committed before a ball was kicked. At the same time, Champions League money dried up. Ajax had built its budget around regular group stage appearances, but early exits and missed qualifications left a gaping hole in the accounts. The club's 2023 to 2024 financial report showed a loss of €9.8 million, a sharp reversal from the previous year's profit. Net turnover fell by nearly a quarter to €152 million, driven by the collapse in European revenue and a steep drop in transfer income. Operating losses ballooned to €39.3 million, even after attempts to cut costs elsewhere. The model that once relied on selling stars at peak value and reinvesting wisely now depended on expensive flops finding buyers, which became an increasingly rare event. Each failed signing lingered on the books, eating into the margin for error. The cost base outpaced income, and the pressure shifted from the boardroom to the pitch. Without Champions League nights or big sales to bail them out, Ajax's spending spree became a financial trap. The sporting crisis was now matched by a fiscal one, with little room left to manoeuvre. Alfred Schreuder's appointment was supposed to steady Ajax after Ten Hag's departure, but by January 2023, the club was drifting. On January 26th, Ajax announced Schreuder's dismissal, citing a string of disappointing results and a team stuck in fifth place. That same night, John Heitinga, a former club defender and youth coach, was named caretaker. The hope was for a fresh start, but the problems ran deeper than motivation. Heitinga's interim spell brought flashes of improvement, yet the squad structure remained unsettled. By June 1st, Ajax confirmed Heitinga would not continue, ending his brief tenure after just 4 months. Searching for answers, Ajax turned to Maurice Stijn, unveiling him as head coach on June 14th. Stijn arrived with a contract through 2026, but little time to shape a team battered by turnover and uncertainty. Results quickly unravelled. By October 2023, Ajax had sunk to 17th in the league, a position unthinkable for a club of its stature. On October 23rd, Stein's exit was announced after a 4-3 defeat to Utrecht left the club near the bottom. It meant 3 coaches in 9 months, each with a different approach and none able to impose order. The revolving door on the bench mirrored the confusion in the boardroom. Without tactical stability, every match became a new experiment, and the foundations that once defined Ajax's football began to crumble. Ajax's unravelling on the pitch was as dramatic as anything behind the scenes. By the spring of 2025, the club held a 9-point lead in the Eredivisie with just 5 matches left. What followed was a collapse that stunned Dutch football. A 4-0 defeat at Utrecht shattered any sense of control. The next week, a draw against Sparta Rotterdam chipped away at confidence, and a 3-0 loss to NEC left players visibly shaken. At Groningen, Ajax conceded a 99th minute equaliser to a side reduced to 10 men. In those final weeks, the team took just 2 points from 5 games, surrendering the title in a manner few could have imagined. The pain was not confined to the domestic stage. In Europe, Ajax finished bottom of their Champions League group, failing even to drop into the Europa League. Supporters who once watched their team outplay Real Madrid and Juventus now saw them outclassed by clubs with a fraction of Ajax's pedigree. The scoreboard told a story of humiliation, heavy defeats, missed opportunities, and a record that no longer struck fear into opponents. The 125th anniversary season, meant to be a celebration, became a period of soul-searching and disbelief. For the first time in living memory, Ajax faced questions not just about lost trophies, but about their very place in the European game. In Amsterdam, the mood around Ajax turned from worry to something closer to mourning. Outside the Johan Cruyff Arena, banners demanded resignations. Supporters gathered in protest, their songs echoing with anger and disbelief. For many, it was not just about lost matches, it was about losing a sense of identity. A middle-aged fan who once celebrated the 1995 Champions League with his father now watched his own son grow up in a world where Ajax was a punchline. He spoke of betrayal by leaders who, in his eyes, had traded identity for quick fixes and empty promises. Among the younger crowd, frustration took a different shape. Those who grew up idolizing the 2019 team, De Ligt, De Jong, Ziyech, struggled to connect with a squad that changed every season and seemed to lack any clear direction. Their Ajax was supposed to be fearless and proud, not a team scrambling for mid-table respectability. Online forums filled with grief and sarcasm, as if humor could soften the blow. The Ultras, always the heartbeat of the South Stand, channeled their fury into action. They organised demonstrations, confronted directors, and hung banners that accused the board of killing the club's soul. The pressure crept into the Toekomst too. Academy prospects, once shielded by stable mentors, now faced the impossible task of saving the first team as teenagers. Every mistake was magnified, every misstep dissected by a restless crowd. The psychological toll was obvious. Talented youngsters played with fear, their confidence eroded by the expectation to fix problems they did not create. For the first time in generations, Ajax supporters described themselves as outsiders in their own club, watching a legacy unravel with no clear way back. Today, Ajax's unravelling stands as a stark warning. Even giants can collapse when identity and structure erode. In modern football, tradition alone cannot compete with data-driven rivals and globalized resources. As clubs everywhere chase quick fixes, Ajax's fall reveals how fragile greatness can be. The lesson is clear: safeguarding a legacy demands constant renewal, not nostalgia. What is lost is not just trophies, but the very soul of a club. Share your thoughts on Ajax's journey.